I trusted him with all my heart, and I trusted her like a sister. But one night, the truth came crashing down. The two people I loved most were sharing a secret that broke me. Imagine walking into a room and seeing your best friend holding hands with your partner. The smile on their faces was the knife in my chest. This is the story of love, betrayal, and the scars it left. When I first met Daniel, I thought he was everything I had ever prayed for. Tall, kind, funny, with that gentle way of listening that made me feel like the only person in the world. I was 22, young, hopeful, and maybe a little naive. He walked into my life at a time when I didn't even believe in love anymore. But with him, love seemed simple, safe, real. My best friend, Claire, had been there from the very beginning. We had known each other since childhood, through school dances, exams, heartbreaks, and silly arguments. Claire was more than a friend. She was my sister in every way that counted. My mother always said, "A friendship like yours is once in a lifetime." I believed her. I trusted Claire as much as I trusted myself. So when Daniel and I started dating, it felt natural to bring Claire into our little world. She was part of me, and he was becoming part of me too. Why not share my happiness with them both? The three of us would go out for coffee, late-night drives, or lazy Sunday afternoons watching movies. I laughed more than I ever had before. In those moments, I thought life was perfect. Daniel and Claire got along instantly. She teased him the way she teased me. He laughed at her jokes, even the bad ones. Sometimes, I would sit there, smiling, thinking, how lucky am I to have the love of my life and my best friend getting along so well. But now, looking back, I realized I should have paid closer attention. At first, it was nothing. A quick glance between them that lasted longer than it should. A laugh they shared that I didn't quite understand. A moment of silence that seemed too comfortable. I brushed it off. After all, what harm could come from the two most important people in my life caring for each other? One night, the three of us were at my apartment. Daniel was helping me cook dinner, while Claire scrolled through her phone, stretched out on the couch. The music was soft, the lights warm. Everything felt ordinary. Then, as I turned to grab something from the counter, I noticed Daniel smiling at a message on his phone. Claire's phone lit up at the exact same time. I froze. For a split second, I wondered if it was just coincidence. But when their eyes met, I felt a sharp twist in my stomach. Still, I told myself, don't be ridiculous. They're friends, just like you wanted them to be. And I forced myself to laugh, pretending I hadn't noticed anything at all. There were other little moments. Times when Daniel would mention something about Claire that I had never told him. Times when Claire seemed to know what Daniel wanted before he even asked. Once, I found her humming his favorite song, one I thought only he and I shared. But I kept silencing my doubts. Love makes you blind, and friendship makes you forgiving. The truth is, I wanted so badly to believe that my world was unshakable. That Daniel loved only me. That Claire would never hurt me. I built walls of trust so high, I refused to see the cracks forming underneath. The night that stands out most clearly was Daniel's birthday. I had planned a small surprise at my apartment. Just the three of us because he hated big crowds. I baked a cake, decorated the living room, and set up his favorite movie. When he arrived, he looked touched. Claire was already there, sitting close on the couch, smiling like she belonged. We sang, we laughed, we ate. But then, as I stepped away to clean up, I heard their laughter behind me. That same laughter, the kind that shut me out. I turned, watching them share a look I couldn't read. My chest tightened. My smile faltered. Something about it didn't feel right. And in that moment, a thought crossed my mind, one I quickly buried. What if they're too close? I pushed it down, pretending everything was fine. But deep inside, a seed of doubt had been planted. By the time Daniel left that night, kissing my forehead gently and Claire hugged me tightly before going home, I couldn't shake the unease. I stood in the quiet apartment, balloons drooping, candles melted down, and I knew. Something was coming. Something that would change everything. The next few weeks after Daniel's birthday seemed ordinary on the surface. Work, dinner dates, quick texts in the middle of the day. Life went on as if nothing had changed. But in my heart, I carried that seed of unease. It was small, almost invisible, but I could feel it pressing against me in quiet moments. Daniel was attentive, as he always had been. He called me his girl. He brought me coffee when I worked late. He kissed my forehead when I worried about things too much. Everything he did painted the picture of a perfect boyfriend. And yet, I noticed his phone was always face down on the table. Claire, too, was her usual self. She laughed loudly. She texted me funny memes. She invited me over for wine nights. She asked about Daniel often. Too often. At first, I thought it was just her being supportive. She wanted me happy. But the way she said his name, soft, deliberate, made my stomach tighten. One afternoon, we were at a cafe. Just me and Claire. She stirred her iced coffee absent-mindedly while I rambled on about my job. Then suddenly, she smiled and said, "You know, Daniel's really thoughtful, isn't he? The way he listens, the way he notices little things." Her words struck me strangely. I should have agreed, but instead I just nodded, sipping my drink to hide the awkward pause. Claire continued, "You're lucky. Most guys aren't like him." She laughed lightly, but her eyes lingered on mine, searching for a reaction. I forced a smile, brushing it off. "Yeah, I know. I'm lucky." But inside, I felt a ripple. It was small, but it spread through me, whispering that something was off. Later that week, Daniel came over after work. We cooked together, laughed as he burned the garlic, and settled onto the couch. My phone buzzed with a message.
Claire.
She had texted, "Did Daniel make it to your place yet?" My chest tightened. How did she know he was on his way? I hadn't told her. I typed back casually, "Yeah, he just got here. Why?" Her reply came quickly. "Oh, nothing. Just wondering." But the question stayed with me. Why would she know his movements so closely? I wanted to ask Daniel, but fear kept me silent. Fear that he would laugh at me. Fear that I would sound paranoid. Fear that if I asked, the truth might actually come out. So, I swallowed my doubts. Again. As days turned into weeks, the three of us still hung out together. Movie nights, dinners, trips to the park. At times, I convinced myself that everything was in my head. That my imagination was cruel. That I was projecting insecurities onto two people who loved me. But there were moments I couldn't ignore. One evening, we were playing cards at Claire's apartment. I excused myself to grab more snacks from the kitchen. From the other room, I heard them laughing. Not just laughing, giggling like teenagers. I paused, chips in hand, listening. Claire's voice, soft but clear, floated through the door. "You're terrible at this game, Daniel." And his reply, warm, teasing, "At least I make you laugh." The words stung. He had always said that to me. That his only goal was to make me laugh. I stepped back into the room, my smile tight, my heart pounding. They looked at me quickly, almost guiltily, before rearranging their faces into casual expressions. That night, I barely slept. The next morning, I told myself, stop overthinking. Don't ruin good things with suspicion. I wanted to believe my own lies. Still, the cracks were getting harder to ignore. One Saturday, Daniel and I were supposed to spend the entire day together. A date we had planned for weeks. But an hour before he was supposed to arrive, he called me. "Babe, something came up. I'll have to rain check today. I'm sorry." His voice sounded rushed. Distracted. I frowned, disappointment heavy in my chest. "What came up?" I asked softly. "Just work stuff. I'll explain later, okay?" I wanted to argue. To press him. But instead I whispered, "Okay. Love you." "Love you too," he replied quickly before hanging up. I sat on my couch, staring at my phone, feeling the loneliness sink in. On a whim, I opened Instagram. And there, staring back at me from Claire's story, was a photo of her coffee cup and across from her, an arm I recognized. Daniel's arm. The same black hoodie he had left at my apartment the week before. The caption read, "Saturday coffee vibes." My hands trembled. My mind screamed. But my heart, it refused to believe. I stared at the picture until my eyes blurred, telling myself there must be a reason. A coincidence. A misunderstanding. Anything but the truth I didn't want to face. When Daniel called later that night, his voice was calm, casual. "How was your day?" I wanted to ask. I wanted to scream. But instead, I lied. It was fine. Because I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to hear him tell me something I couldn't take back. That night, as I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, I realized something. My perfect little world was trembling. The cracks weren't just cracks anymore. They were widening. And I knew something was about to break. The following week, I tried to convince myself that I was overreacting. I told myself again and again, Claire is my best friend. Daniel loves me. Stop imagining things. But no matter how hard I tried, the doubt clung to me like a shadow. Every small detail stood out. The way Daniel's phone lit up late at night, and he quickly turned it over. The way Claire sometimes left the room to answer calls when we were together. The way their laughter seemed private, like a language I wasn't part of. It wasn't always big things, it was the little things that gnawed at me. One evening, Daniel came to pick me up. We were heading to dinner with his coworkers. I opened the passenger door and noticed something odd. A small silver bracelet on the seat. Not mine. Claire's. She had worn it countless times, and I would know it anywhere. I froze for a moment, staring at it. My chest tightened, and a lump rose in my throat. Daniel noticed my hesitation. "What's wrong?" he asked lightly, following my gaze. I picked up the bracelet slowly. My voice trembled as I said, "This isn't mine." For the briefest second, something flickered across his face. Guilt? Panic? But just as quickly, he forced a chuckle. "Oh yeah, Claire must have dropped it when I gave her a ride the other day. She needed a lift. I forgot to mention." I swallowed hard, my fingers gripping the bracelet. The explanation was simple. Too simple. "Right," I murmured, sliding into the seat. I tried to smile, but my chest felt heavy. During dinner, Daniel was attentive, laughing at my jokes, squeezing my hand under the table. Anyone watching us would think we were perfectly in love. But in the back of my mind, all I could see was that bracelet glinting on the seat. Later, at home, I placed it in my jewelry box. Not because it belonged to me, but because I couldn't let go of the silent proof that something wasn't right. The days that followed were filled with unease. Claire started canceling our usual meetups. She always had an excuse: work, family, headaches. But then I'd see her tagged in photos by mutual friends, smiling, carefree. One night, desperate to clear my head, I called her. "Hey, Claire. It feels like forever since we hung out. You okay?" Her voice sounded rushed. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just busy, you know? We'll catch up soon." I tried to keep the conversation light, but my chest ached. I wanted to ask, "Were you with Daniel?" But the words refused to leave my mouth. The tension only grew worse when Daniel began pulling away too. He was still affectionate, but there was a distance in his eyes, a distraction I couldn't name. One Saturday, he showed up at my door with flowers. A sweet gesture, one that should have warmed my heart. But I noticed something strange. A faint perfume clinging to his shirt, not mine. Not his mother's. Not anyone I recognized. But I had smelled it before. Claire's. The scent made my throat close. I hugged him anyway, forcing a smile, my heart screaming silently inside. I started keeping a journal just to hold my thoughts. I wrote down every strange moment, every inconsistency. I told myself if I see it all written down, maybe I'll know if I'm imagining things. The journal filled quickly. Too quickly. One evening, as I flipped through the pages, I felt the tears blur my vision. It wasn't just imagination. The pattern was too clear. The late-night calls. The work excuses. The familiar bracelet. The perfume. And yet, despite all of it, I clung to hope. A hope that there was an explanation. Hope that I was wrong. Hope that love was stronger than betrayal. But hope was fragile. And it was breaking. The final straw came during a night out with mutual friends. We were at a bar, music thumping, laughter surrounding us. Daniel had gone to get drinks, and Claire had slipped away to take a call. I sat with the others, pretending to be fine, pretending my world wasn't crumbling. Then, as I glanced toward the hallway leading to the bathrooms, my heart stopped. There they were, Daniel and Claire. Not holding hands, not kissing, but standing too close. Their faces inches apart, their bodies angled toward each other like magnets. His hand brushed her arm in a way that wasn't casual. Her smile was soft, secretive. It lasted only seconds before they stepped apart, as if nothing had happened. But those seconds burned into me like fire. When Daniel returned with drinks, his smile was easy, natural. He handed me a glass, kissed my cheek, and laughed at a joke someone made. But my hand shook as I took the drink. Because I knew. I didn't have the words yet. I didn't have the courage to confront them. But in that moment, as I forced myself to laugh with the others, I felt it. The certainty that my world was about to fall apart. Something had already broken. And soon, the pieces would shatter completely. After that night at the bar, sleep became nearly impossible. I would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying the image of Daniel and Claire standing too close, whispering as if the world around them didn't exist. The vision clung to me, replaying over and over until I thought I'd lose my mind. Every morning, I woke with a hollow ache in my chest. Daniel kissed my forehead as though nothing had changed, but I felt a wall between us. A wall I hadn't built. A wall that was slowly shutting me out. One evening, I decided to surprise him. He had mentioned working late at the office, so I thought I'd stop by with his favorite takeout. Maybe, I told myself, I was being unfair. Maybe a simple gesture would remind me of the love we shared. I parked outside his building, clutching the warm bag of food. The windows glowed faintly in the night, some offices still lit. I rode the elevator up, my heart racing. When I stepped into his floor, the place was nearly empty. Just a few scattered lights, the faint hum of computers. I walked quietly, searching for his office. But then I stopped. Voices drifted from down the hall. Soft, familiar voices. Daniel.
Claire.
My throat tightened, my body frozen. I edged closer, careful not to make a sound. Their words weren't clear, muffled by the half-closed door, but their laughter rang out. Intimate. Comfortable. The kind of laughter people share when they don't need to pretend. My chest burned as I stood there, food growing cold in my hands. I wanted to burst through the door, to scream. Why are you here? Why are you together? But fear rooted me in place. Fear of the answer. Fear that if I asked, they would confirm what my heart already knew. After a long minute, I turned away, walking back toward the elevator with trembling legs. I left the food on the reception desk, a silent gift to no one. That night, Daniel returned home later than usual. His shirt was slightly wrinkled, his hair messier than before. But his smile was easy. Too easy. Sorry I'm late, he said, slipping off his jacket. The office was a nightmare tonight. I stared at him, searching for cracks in his story. I wanted to shout, I was there. I heard you. But instead, I swallowed the words. Long night? I asked, my voice steady though my hands shook. He nodded, sighing heavily.
Yeah.
You wouldn't believe it. And in that moment, watching him so casually lie, something inside me hardened. Days turned into weeks, each one heavier than the last. My journal filled with evidence, small details that screamed the truth no matter how much I wanted to deny it. One entry read, Claire canceled again. Daniel disappeared for 3 hours. Both claimed they were busy. Same evening. Another, saw Claire's perfume on Daniel's shirt. He didn't notice I noticed. Another, why do they think I'm blind? But even with the evidence stacking up, I couldn't bring myself to confront them. Not yet. The breaking point came one Saturday afternoon. Daniel told me he was going to run errands, nothing unusual. Claire had texted earlier, saying she was spending the day with her mother. Something about it felt wrong. My gut twisted, and I couldn't shake the unease. So I decided to follow. I know how it sounds, sneaky, desperate. But desperation had become my constant companion. I waited 10 minutes after Daniel left, then grabbed my keys and drove, keeping my distance. He didn't head to the grocery store like he claimed. Instead, he drove across town into a quieter neighborhood. My heart pounded as I followed, every turn tightening the knot in my stomach. Finally, he pulled up in front of a small cafe. A place I'd never been, tucked away from the busy streets. And there she was.
Claire.
Already waiting at a table by the window, her smile bright as he walked inside. I parked around the corner, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly they ached. From my seat, I watched them greet each other. The way his hand lingered on hers a second too long. The way her laughter softened when he leaned in. It wasn't just friendship. It wasn't innocent. It was something more. Tears blurred my vision, but I couldn't look away. The two people I loved most in the world were sitting across from each other, sharing something I was no longer part of. After nearly an hour, they stood and left together, walking side by side down the street. Close enough that their arms brushed with every step. I sat frozen, my world crumbling around me. That night, when Daniel came home, he acted as though nothing had happened. He kissed my cheek, asked about my day, and settled onto the couch like every other evening. But I couldn't play along anymore. I excused myself, went into the bedroom, and closed the door. I stared at my reflection in the mirror, my face pale, my eyes hollow. The truth was no longer a shadow. It was standing right in front of me, undeniable, unshakable. My best friend. My partner. Together. Something had broken inside me that night. something I wasn't sure could ever be fixed. And though I hadn't spoken the words yet, I knew the confrontation was coming. Because secrets don't stay hidden forever. And theirs was about to explode. The morning after I followed Daniel to the cafe, I woke up feeling as though my body didn't belong to me. My limbs were heavy, my chest hollow, my head filled with echoes of their laughter. I could still see Claire's hand resting on his, the way she leaned in with that secret smile, a smile I used to think was meant for me alone. At first, I told myself it wasn't what it looked like. Maybe they were just close friends, sharing something I wasn't part of. Maybe it was nothing. But deep down, the denial was fragile, a thin glass wall already cracking under the weight of truth. Daniel moved around the apartment that morning like nothing had happened. He brewed coffee, hummed a tune, and kissed my forehead before heading out. His ease was unbearable. How could he be so calm when my world was collapsing? By noon, I couldn't take it anymore. My hands shook as I dialed Claire's number. She picked up after 2 rings, her voice warm and familiar. "Hey you," she said. "What's up?" For a moment, I couldn't speak. My throat tightened, my mind spinning. Then I blurted it out. "Were you with Daniel yesterday?" There was a pause. A dangerous pause. She began, her voice faltering. We ran into each other, yeah. Just for a bit." Her words sliced through me. The casual tone, the hesitation, it was enough. She was lying. "Claire," I whispered, my voice breaking. "Don't do this to me.
Please.
Just tell me the truth." Silence stretched between us. I could hear her shallow breathing, the way her voice trembled when she finally spoke. "I don't want to hurt you," she said softly. "But yes, we've been seeing each other." The room spun. My grip on the phone loosened until it nearly slipped from my hand. "You," I stammered, unable to form a sentence. "How could you? You're my best friend. He's my..." My voice cracked before I could finish. "I didn't plan this," she said, her words tumbling fast. "It just happened. You know how things get complicated." Complicated. That word made my blood boil. As if betraying me was some minor accident, an unfortunate twist of fate. I hung up without another word, my hands trembling so violently I almost dropped the phone. Tears blurred my vision until the world became a smear of colors. When Daniel came home that evening, I confronted him. I didn't wait. The second he stepped through the door, I demanded, "Are you sleeping with Claire?" His face drained of color. He opened his mouth, closed it again, then tried to laugh it off. "Where is this coming from?" he asked, feigning innocence. "Don't lie to me," I screamed, my voice echoing off the walls. "I know," she told me. "Don't you dare stand there and pretend." The silence that followed was worse than any confession. His shoulders slumped, his eyes fell to the floor. He didn't deny it. He didn't fight for me. And that was enough. The air in the room turned suffocating. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The man I had loved, trusted, and built a life with had chosen her. My best friend. The days that followed were a blur of pain. I drifted through each hour like a ghost, barely eating, barely sleeping. Friends asked if I was okay, but I brushed them off with fake smiles. How could I explain that my entire life had been torn apart by the 2 people I trusted most? But as the grief consumed me, something else began to stir. A seed planted deep in the soil of betrayal. A dark thought that whispered late at night when I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. They deserved to pay. At first, I dismissed it. Revenge wasn't me. I wasn't that kind of person. But the more I thought about their laughter, their secret meetings, their whispered lies, the more the idea grew. Why should they get away with it? Why should they walk free, smiling, while I was left broken? I started small, imagining confrontations in my head, telling their families, exposing them to everyone we knew, watching their perfect little lie crumble under the weight of truth. But the more I imagined, the more thrilling it became. My grief shifted, morphing into anger, sharp and consuming. One evening, while staring into the mirror, I whispered aloud, "They took everything from me. Maybe it's time I take something from them." The words hung heavy in the air, but they felt right. They felt powerful. That night, I opened my journal again. But instead of entries filled with pain, I began to write plans. Plans for revenge. Not vague fantasies. Not fleeting thoughts. But detailed steps. Names. Dates. Secrets only I knew. The thrill sent shivers down my spine. I was no longer powerless, no longer their victim. I was the storm waiting to break. And when I finally struck, they would never see it coming. The journal became my sanctuary, my weapon, and my secret companion. Each night, when the world fell silent, I sat at my desk under the faint glow of a lamp and poured my darkest thoughts onto the page. The ink felt alive, heavy with purpose. This wasn't just writing anymore, it was blueprinting, a map of retribution, each line sharper than the blade of my pain. I started with observation, watching them, taking note of patterns. Daniel's schedule was predictable. Work from 9 to 6, gym twice a week, home by dinner unless he had meetings. Claire's shifts at the hospital were irregular, but she always found time for late-night coffee runs. My suspicions sharpened into certainties when I began trailing them, following Daniel's car in silence. Twice I saw them together, hidden in dim corners of the city where they thought no one would notice. Every sighting made my blood boil, but also strengthened my resolve. Anger sharpened into focus. This wasn't just betrayal, it was arrogance. They believed I was blind, that I was weak, that I would never do anything. They underestimated me. At first, my plans were simple: tell everyone, expose them at a family gathering, humiliate them in front of the very people they lied to. I even drafted speeches, rehearsed them in the mirror, imagining the stunned faces, the awkward silence, the shame. But then I thought deeper. Public humiliation might hurt, but it wouldn't last. People forget scandals quickly. Daniel and Claire could spin the story, make excuses, or even paint me as bitter and unstable.
No.
I needed something stronger, something that would shake their foundation, something they couldn't escape. I began digging into secrets. I knew Claire better than anyone, her childhood struggles, her weaknesses, the things she tried to keep buried. I knew Daniel's fears, his lies, even the small ones he thought didn't matter. I remembered stories, receipts, emails, all the little fragments of their lives that I had tucked away over the years. Now, those fragments became ammunition. It was thrilling. I won't lie. My heart raced whenever I pieced together a new angle, a new way to unravel them. It was as though I had stepped into a dangerous game, one where I was finally holding the cards. For once, I wasn't the broken one. I was the one in control. But the danger of it all gnawed at me too. Late at night, I lay awake wondering, what if someone finds out it was me? If my fingerprints were on every plan, if I slipped even once, I could lose everything. The thought terrified me, but it also electrified me. The risk made it real. I tested the waters carefully. My first move was small, almost invisible. I logged into Daniel's laptop while he showered. I had known his password for years, our anniversary date. It was pathetic, really, how little he bothered to protect himself. I sifted through his emails and found them, dozens of messages between him and Claire. Sweet, desperate, passionate words. They used nicknames, made plans, even joked about me as though I were some clueless child. My stomach twisted as I read, but I didn't cry. Not anymore. I copied every email, every photo, every detail, and saved them on a drive hidden in my desk. Proof. Solid, undeniable proof. The next move was riskier. I borrowed Claire's phone while she was in the restroom during a dinner with mutual friends. My hands shook as I scrolled, but I found what I needed. Texts, voice notes, even a picture of her and Daniel together, kissing in the car I had once bought for him. My breath caught, fury rising, but I pressed forward. I sent the files to myself, deleted the traces, and placed the phone back before she returned. The thrill was intoxicating. I had their secrets now, wrapped tightly in my hands. One whisper from me, one click, and their world would shatter. But I wasn't ready yet. Not quite. I wanted the timing to be perfect. The first strike had to matter. It had to echo. In the meantime, I tested their limits. I dropped subtle hints in conversation, tiny jabs meant to unsettle them. At dinner, I asked Daniel casually, "Do you ever think about how much people can hide from the ones closest to them?" His fork froze midair. At brunch with Claire, I leaned in and whispered, "I've been having the strangest dreams lately. Dreams where people betray me. Do you believe dreams tell the truth?" Her smile faltered. These moments gave me a dangerous satisfaction. Watching them squirm, wondering if I knew, was almost as sweet as the act of revenge itself. But it wasn't enough. I wanted more. One night, I stood by the window, staring at the city lights, and whispered to myself, "It's time." My voice sounded foreign, low and determined. The plan wasn't just fantasy anymore. It was ready to step into the real world. I decided my first real move would be a leak, just enough to shake them, not destroy them yet. A storm begins with a single drop of rain, after all. I created an anonymous email account and attached screenshots of their messages. I sent them to one of our mutual friends, someone I knew couldn't keep a secret. I crafted the message carefully, leaving no trace of myself. The subject line read, "You deserve to know the truth." My hands trembled as I clicked send. The moment the message disappeared into cyberspace, my chest tightened. Fear and exhilaration collided inside me. What if they traced it back to me? What if it all collapsed before I could finish? But the next day, when I saw Daniel's pale face and Claire's frantic texts, I knew it had worked. Someone had confronted them. Someone had whispered about their secret. The ripple had begun, and I was ready for the waves to grow into a storm. The email leak was like throwing a stone into still water. At first, it seemed small, barely a ripple. But within days, those ripples grew into waves that shook everything. The first sign was at a mutual gathering. Daniel walked in, trying to wear his usual charm, but his eyes betrayed him, darting around nervously, avoiding mine. Claire followed shortly after, her smile stretched too tight, her laugh too loud, as if forcing normalcy. But whispers had already started. People exchanged glances, conversation stopped when they entered the room, and laughter felt sharper, crueler. I sat in the corner, quiet, watching. A storm was swirling around them, and I was its hidden conductor.
Daniel pulled me aside that night.
"Something's going around," he said, voice low, almost trembling. "Someone's spreading lies about me. About us." "Lies?" I asked softly, tilting my head. "What kind of lies?" His jaw clenched. He searched my face for clues, but I gave him none. Just wide, innocent eyes. He muttered something about jealous people, then stormed off. That was when I knew. The fear had set in. But fear alone wasn't enough. I wanted cracks to become fractures, fractures to become collapse. I moved carefully, like a thief in the night. Each day, I planted new seeds. I called Claire one afternoon and said casually, "You've been busy lately, haven't you? Always sneaking away. I hope you're not hiding anything important." Her breath caught, a pause that told me my words had landed. She laughed it off, but the edge in her voice betrayed her. The danger thrilled me, but it also kept me awake at night. I replayed every move, every email, every conversation in my head, terrified I'd left a trace. What if Daniel realized it was me? What if Claire confronted me? The thought of exposure terrified me, but strangely, it also fueled me. The risk was part of the power. And then, the consequences began to ripple further than I expected. One evening, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Whoever you are, stop, or you'll regret it." My heart froze. For a moment, panic clawed at my throat. Had they discovered me? Was this the end of my game before it truly began? I deleted the message instantly, but its shadow lingered. Every sound outside my window, every ring of the phone, every unexpected knock at the door made my skin prickle. Still, I pressed on. I decided the next move would be financial. Daniel had always prided himself on his career, his steady income, his provider image. But I knew things he had hidden, debts he had taken on secretly, money spent carelessly, investments that hadn't gone as planned. I found the documents in our home office months before, tucked away where he thought I'd never look. Now, I dug them out like a weapon. With careful precision, I copied the files and sent them anonymously to his boss. I added just enough context to suggest fraud, dishonesty, carelessness. Not outright accusations, but seeds of doubt that would grow. Days later, Daniel came home pale and furious. He slammed his briefcase down, yelling, "Someone's trying to ruin me. They think I mishandled company funds. I could lose everything." I covered my mouth with a gasp, pretending shock. "That's horrible. But, Daniel, are they wrong?" He glared at me, eyes wide, almost wild. "Of course they're wrong," he barked. But his hesitation betrayed him. Inside, I smiled. Outside, I reached out to touch his arm, playing the role of supportive partner. "I'm sure it'll be okay," I whispered, while knowing full well I had set the fire beneath his feet. Meanwhile, Claire was unraveling in her own way. She called me late at night, voice trembling. "People are saying things about me. About Daniel. Someone's watching us. I can feel it." I played dumb, soothing her fears, acting the friend. "You're imagining things," I whispered. "You've been working too hard." But her voice broke.
No, it's more than that.
"Whoever it is, they want to destroy us." And she was right. The most dangerous part of it all was how close I came to exposure. At a gathering one weekend, a friend cornered me. "You haven't heard anything, have you? About Daniel and Claire?" His tone was suspicious, his eyes sharp. I forced a laugh, shook my head and changed the
subject.
But the suspicion lingered in his gaze. That night, I lay awake replaying every step. One wrong word, one careless slip, and it could all fall back onto me. The fear gnawed at me, but I couldn't stop. The taste of power was too intoxicating. The chaos was spreading faster than I'd imagined. Daniel snapped at colleagues. Claire started missing shifts. Friends avoided them. Their once perfect masks were slipping. And all the while, I stood in the shadows, smiling silently as their lives crumbled piece by piece. But deep inside, beneath the thrill and satisfaction, there was another feeling, a strange emptiness. I thought revenge would fill the hole their betrayal carved into me. Instead, it was like pouring water into sand. It vanished as quickly as it came.
Still, I pressed on.
Because I wasn't finished yet. The storm I had created wasn't at its peak. Not yet. The first leak had shaken them. The financial blow had weakened them. The whispers had surrounded them. Now it was time to prepare for the strike that would break them completely. And I promised myself one thing. When it came, I would be watching. Daniel's reputation at work was in shambles. The whispers about financial misconduct had reached the higher levels of management. He came home late, his tie loosened, his face pale with exhaustion. Sometimes he shouted into the phone in the living room. Other times he sat silently in the dark, staring at nothing. The confident man I had once admired was collapsing in front of me. Claire, on the other hand, had grown paranoid. She stopped posting on social media, stopped meeting people for coffee, and avoided gatherings altogether. When I called, she sounded distracted, restless. "Someone's watching me," she whispered one night. "I swear I saw a car following me home." I listened quietly, offering soft reassurances, though my heart pounded with dark satisfaction. She wasn't wrong. I had been feeding her paranoia with small tricks. Anonymous notes slipped into her bag at work, a phone call where I breathed heavily, then hung up, a message saying "I know what you did." Every move pushed them closer to the edge. But I wanted more than cracks. I wanted collapse. So I set the stage for the first real strike. It was a Friday evening when I acted. Daniel had been invited to a small corporate dinner, an opportunity for him to salvage what little dignity remained.
Claire was supposed to attend with him.
But hours before the event, I leaked something new, screenshots. Carefully edited, but convincing enough. Emails suggesting not only their affair, but also Daniel using company resources to cover for their meetings. The screenshots spread like wildfire through his office. By the time Daniel arrived at the dinner, he was already a spectacle. Whispers turned to stares, stares to snickers. Claire sat beside him, her face flushed, her hands trembling as her phone buzzed nonstop. People avoided their table. The few who approached spoke in clipped tones, their eyes sharp with judgment. I wasn't there in person, but I didn't need to be. A friend sent me a photo from the dinner. Daniel and Claire, sitting stiff and small in the middle of a crowd that had already condemned them. Their downfall had finally stepped into the open. When Daniel came home later that night, he was furious. He slammed doors, cursed under his breath, and threw his phone across the room. Claire followed him in tears, shouting, "This is your fault. You should have been more careful." "And what about you?" he roared back. "You think this was just me? You were there every step of the way." Their voices tore through the walls, each accusation sharper than the last. For the first time, I heard them turning against each other. I sat quietly in my bedroom, listening to the chaos I had orchestrated. The storm outside had finally broken inside. But victory didn't feel the way I expected. I thought hearing them scream, watching them burn, would fill me with triumph. Instead, I felt heavy,
Hollow.
My chest ached with something I couldn't name. The next morning, the consequences rippled further. Daniel's boss called. He was suspended pending investigation. Claire's workplace had caught wind of the rumors, and her manager suggested she take unpaid leave until things cooled down. Their perfect little world was crumbling, brick by brick. Yet the danger grew sharper for me too. That same day, I received a message from an unknown account. "I know this is you. Stop before it's too late." My blood ran cold. My hands shook as I stared at the screen. Could it be Daniel?
Claire?
Or someone else who had pieced it together? For hours, I sat paralyzed, every instinct screaming to stop, to burn the evidence, to erase the files, to retreat into silence before it all collapsed on me. But then I remembered the nights I cried alone, the image of them laughing behind my back, the humiliation of betrayal. And my hesitation hardened back into resolve.
No, I thought.
Not yet. Not until it's finished. That evening, Daniel confronted me directly. He paced the living room, his eyes sharp, his voice rough. "Someone's targeting me," he said. "Someone who knows too much. Too many personal details.
Too many secrets.
It has to be someone close." I swallowed hard, forcing calm. "What are you saying, Daniel?" His gaze flickered to me for a long, heavy moment. I felt my stomach twist, my palms sweat. For a heartbeat, I thought he had seen through me. But then he shook his head.
No.
"No, it can't be you. You'd never. You're not capable of this." The words stung, though not for the reason he intended. I wanted to laugh in his face, to scream, "You have no idea what I'm capable of." But instead, I lowered my eyes, murmuring, "I just want things to be okay." That was the first move of revenge landing fully. Their reputations shredded. Their careers jeopardized. Their bond crumbling. And yet, the most dangerous part had only just begun. Suspicion was creeping too close, and every step I took was now lined with risk. The storm had hit, but the flood that followed could sweep me away if I wasn't careful. Still, I knew one truth with certainty. I had drawn blood, and there was no turning back. The path I had chosen could only end one way: destruction. And I was ready to see it through. Daniel sat in the living room, his head buried in his hands, the television flickering unwatched in the corner. Claire paced near the window, her arms folded tight across her chest, her face pale. The weight of their downfall hung heavy in the air. I stood in the kitchen doorway, unseen for a moment, watching them unravel. Every detail of their broken posture, every sigh, every whispered accusation, it was the image I had wanted to see for weeks. And now, finally, the stage was set. "Stop pacing, Claire." Daniel snapped suddenly, his voice sharp as glass. "You're driving me crazy." "Crazy," she spun on him, her eyes blazing. "You're the reason we're here. You couldn't keep your mouth shut, couldn't keep your ego in check." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Don't put this all on me. You were the one who begged for more.
More time.
More secrecy. More lies." Their voices rose, overlapping like knives clashing. I stepped forward then, my presence pulling their eyes toward me. "Enough." The words sliced through the air. Both of them froze, staring at me as if they'd just remembered I existed. "What?" Daniel asked, his voice low, uncertain. I moved into the room, slow, deliberate. My hands trembled, but I hid it by clenching them into fists. I said, "Enough. Stop blaming each other. You should be blaming yourselves for everything." Claire blinked, confusion flickering across her face. "What are you talking about?" I laughed then, sharp and bitter. "Don't play dumb. Do you really think your little secret was safe? That you could betray me, betray everything, and walk away untouched?" The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. Daniel's eyes narrowed, suspicion twisting into certainty. "It was you," he whispered. "Yes." I met his gaze without flinching. "It was me. Every email, every rumor, every whisper in the dark. I tore you apart, Daniel. Both of you." Claire's hand flew to her mouth, her skin draining of color. No, you wouldn't." "I did." My voice shook, but I forced it steady. "And you deserved every second of it." Daniel surged to his feet, rage radiating off him. "You ruined me. You destroyed my career. You destroyed yourself," I shot back. "I just made sure the world saw the truth." Claire's eyes filled with tears. Why would you do this to me? I loved you like." "Don't." I cut her off, my voice low, venomous. "Don't you dare say you loved me. You don't betray someone you love." The room pulsed with the weight of the words. None of us moved. None of us breathed. Finally, Daniel spoke, his voice broken but edged with fury. "You've gone too far. Do you realize that? You've made yourself an enemy. If the truth comes out, if anyone finds out you did this, then I'll burn with you." I interrupted. My chest heaved, my heart pounding in my throat. "But at least I won't be burning alone." Claire whispered, "This is madness." "No," I said, my voice soft but deadly. "This is justice." Daniel clenched his fists, his whole body shaking. "You'll regret this." I stepped closer, close enough to see the rage in his eyes, close enough to feel Claire's fear radiating off her. "No," I whispered, staring directly at him. "The only regret here is that I ever trusted you." The words hit like a blade. Daniel flinched, his jaw tightening. Claire sank into the sofa, her face buried in her hands. And in that moment, I felt it, the power shift. For the first time since the betrayal, I wasn't the broken one. I wasn't the victim. I was the one in control, holding the strings, forcing them to confront the ruin they had created. But power is dangerous. It tempts you to take more, to push harder, to cross the line you swore you wouldn't. And as I stood there, watching their silence choke them, I knew I wasn't finished. This wasn't the end. This was only the beginning of the final act. The next morning, the air in the house was thick with silence. Not the quiet before a storm, but the quiet after the first wave of destruction. Daniel moved like a shadow, careful, tense, avoiding eye contact. Claire sat curled on the sofa, scrolling her phone with trembling hands, her face pale, her lips pressed together. I watched them both from the kitchen doorway, savoring the quiet chaos. Their world was collapsing, and I was the architect. But I didn't stop. Not yet. I had prepared one final move, a revelation that would leave no escape. It wasn't just about exposing their affair anymore. It was about showing the true depth of their deceit, how deeply they had underestimated me, how vulnerable they really were. First, I gathered everything: emails, photos, messages, receipts. Every fragment of their lies, Every hidden meeting, every careless moment they thought was secret. I arranged it meticulously, like a puzzle only I could complete. Then I sent it. To their families, to close friends, even a few colleagues. The subject line was simple but deadly. The truth you never knew about Daniel and Claire. Immediately, my phone buzzed nonstop. Notifications of replies, shocked messages, angry texts, and disbelief filled my screen. Daniel came running from the living room, snatching the phone from me. "What did you do?" he demanded, his voice raw with panic. "I told the truth," I said softly, calmly. "Exactly what you deserve." He stared at me, eyes wide, as he scrolled through the flood of reactions. His face paled, his hands shaking. No, this can't be real." "It's very real," I whispered, stepping closer. "And it's only the beginning." Claire's sobs cut through the room. Why would you do this?" I met her gaze, unflinching. "Because someone had to make you feel what I felt. Betrayal has consequences. Lies have consequences. And you, both of you, forgot that." Daniel's voice rose, trembling with a mixture of anger and fear. "People will hate me. My career, my family, everything gone. And you will remember me every time it happens," I said, each word deliberate, each syllable heavy. "Every insult, every humiliation, every loss, you'll feel it and know it's because you underestimated me." He clenched his fists and lunged forward, but I didn't flinch. I had rehearsed this moment countless times. Every step, every word, every glance had been planned to perfection. Claire cried out, "Stop it. You can't keep doing this." I tilted my head, letting a cold smile cross my face. "Oh, I can. And I will. Until you both understand the cost of betrayal." Daniel sank into the sofa, burying his face in his hands. Claire wrapped her arms around herself, rocking slightly. I watched them break, and for a fleeting moment, I felt satisfaction. But the thrill of victory came with a dangerous whisper. I had to be careful. One wrong move now, one slip of the tongue, and the entire plan could collapse on me. Legal trouble, exposure, even the suspicion that I had orchestrated everything could ruin me. I reminded myself, the most dangerous part of revenge is its final act. It's the moment when the perpetrator becomes vulnerable, the target becomes unpredictable, and the line between satisfaction and ruin blurs. Later that evening, their families arrived, shocked, angry, disappointed. Questions flew like arrows, accusations bounced back and forth, and Daniel and Claire could do nothing but defend themselves against the tide of evidence. Every lie they had carefully constructed now shattered under scrutiny. "You've ruined everything," Daniel shouted to me when the door closed. "I only revealed what you were too foolish to hide," I said calmly, stepping back, letting the chaos unfold around them. Claire's eyes were wet, her body trembling. "Please stop. I can't take this anymore." "You should have thought of that before betraying me," I whispered, letting my words linger like ice in the room. By the end of the night, Daniel and Claire were left standing in the ruins of their reputation, their trust in each other fractured beyond repair. Friends had pulled away. Family looked at them differently. And I finally felt the weight of what I had done. Sitting alone later, I realized revenge is not just about the other person's pain. It's about the control, the power, the acknowledgement of betrayal. But it comes at a cost. There's no joy in the destruction, only the hollow echo of satisfaction, a dangerous pleasure that makes the air feel heavier, the nights longer, and the silence deafening. I didn't speak to them for weeks. I didn't need to. The damage was done, the lesson learned. And in the quiet aftermath, I discovered something unsettling. Satisfaction and emptiness can live together, side by side. I had won, but at what cost? The house was quiet, too quiet. The storm of exposure, whispers, and confrontation had passed, leaving only a tense, heavy silence that pressed down on every corner. Daniel sat slumped in the living room, shoulders hunched, his tie loosened, eyes hollow. Claire lay on the sofa, face buried in a pillow, shaking silently. Both were broken, not just by the truth revealed, but by the realization that they had been outmaneuvered. Completely. I stepped into the room slowly, deliberately, my presence cutting through the quiet like a knife. "Daniel, Claire," my voice was calm, almost gentle, but it carried the weight of finality. Daniel's head snapped up, his eyes wild with anger and fear. "What else? What are you going to do now?" I shook my head slowly. "Nothing more, if you understand." Claire lifted her head, eyes red, voice trembling. "Understand what? That you're a monster? That you destroyed us completely?" I walked closer, hands loose at my sides, feeling the power shift fully into my grasp. "I'm not a monster. I'm the consequence." Daniel laughed bitterly. "The consequence? You've ruined everything. Your revenge is over, but ours, it's just beginning. People will never forgive us." I smiled softly. Exactly. The irony hit them both. Every carefully built lie, every secret meeting, every betrayal they thought hidden, it was all laid bare. Not by chance, not by accident, but by my hand. And they knew it. Claire's voice cracked. You planned all of this? You were behind everything? The emails, the rumors, the financial leaks. Yes, I said simply. Every piece, every word, every little domino fell because I pushed it. Daniel's hands shook. He wanted to lash out, to scream, but words failed him. He realized fully now that I had been steps ahead, always watching, always planning. The fear in his eyes was the most satisfying part. Not the ruin itself, but the understanding that he was powerless. Do you feel satisfied? Claire whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks. You've won, but don't you feel empty? I paused. For a moment, I thought of the nights I lay awake, the sleepless hours spent plotting every move. The small victories, the leaks, the whispers, they were intoxicating, but they came with a weight. I had wanted justice, revenge, closure, but the truth was, it felt hollow. Yes, I admitted quietly, and no. I feel relief, I feel power, but there's an emptiness too. I thought destroying you would fill the void you left. It didn't. Daniel's voice was low, seething. You think you're better than us? Smarter? You've taken everything from us. I stepped even closer, tilting my head. I took nothing you didn't already give me. You betrayed me, underestimated me, and thought you were untouchable. I simply corrected that. Claire whispered. And what now? How do we move forward? I shook my head. You don't. Not together. Not as you were. You'll rebuild, yes, but not the same. You've lost trust, respect, everything that mattered.
And
I walk away knowing the truth is known. Justice has been served, and I survived it. Daniel's face twisted with anger, but he was exhausted. Claire's sobs echoed softly in the room. The silence returned, heavier this time, filled with the weight of finality. I turned toward the door. Remember this, betrayal always finds its consequence. Never forget it. I left the room slowly, deliberately. The click of the door closing behind me was like a period at the end of a sentence. Outside, the air was cold, sharp, clean. I breathed in deeply, feeling the tension leave my body. The storm inside had ended, but its echoes would haunt them forever. Walking away, I realized something crucial about revenge. It isn't about joy or anger or even satisfaction. It's about reclaiming your power, setting the record straight, and surviving the pain they caused. And I had done that. Yes, I had destroyed them. Yes, I had revealed every secret, exposed every lie, and left them broken. But in doing so, I had also freed myself from their deception, from their betrayal, from the helplessness I once felt. And as I disappeared into the night, I understood one final truth. Revenge is a dangerous teacher. It shows you your strength, your cunning, and your endurance, but it also teaches the cost. And that cost is the shadow it leaves behind in your own soul. The house felt emptier now, not because anyone had moved out, but because the tension had settled into a heavy, almost tangible layer. Daniel and Claire were no longer the same people I had known. Their smiles were forced, their conversations clipped, their trust in each other, and in the world, shattered. I didn't visit them. I didn't call. I had done my part, unleashed the truth, and walked away. And yet, in that distance, I discovered a quiet, unsettling truth. Revenge does not bring the clarity or satisfaction we imagine. It brings power, yes, but it also brings emptiness. Some nights, I lay awake, remembering their faces, the shock, the fear, the realization that I had been steps ahead. I replayed every confrontation, every leaked email, every carefully placed whisper. There was satisfaction, undeniably, but there was also a hollowness, a lingering ache where the betrayal once lived. I had wanted justice, to reclaim what they had taken from me, and I had done that. Every lie they told, every betrayal they executed, had been met with equal force. They had felt it all, the humiliation, the fear, the collapse of their carefully constructed lives. But I also realized that revenge is not clean. It leaves stains. Shadows cling to you in ways you don't expect. The power I had wielded came at a cost. I felt it in the quiet moments, a pang of guilt when I saw a mutual friend avoid me, a flicker of regret when I remembered moments of kindness I once shared with them. Life went on. Daniel eventually left the city, taking a new job far from the ruins of his reputation. Claire tried to rebuild, but the whispers followed her, and the trust she once enjoyed was gone. They were survivors, yes, but the people they were before, naive, arrogant, unafraid, were gone forever. And I moved forward too. I focused on myself, on healing, on reclaiming the pieces of me that had been lost in their betrayal. There were days when I smiled again without the weight of rage pressing down. There were moments of peace, fleeting but precious, when I could remember that the storm had passed and I had endured it. Yet sometimes, in quiet reflection, I felt a pang of something I hadn't expected: emptiness. Satisfaction does not erase pain. Power does not erase scars. Revenge solves one problem but leaves many others. The echo of betrayal remains, and the echo of your own actions lingers long after the target has fallen. I thought of the nights I cried alone, the moments I doubted my strength, and the long hours I spent plotting each move. I thought of the calculated risks, the near exposure, and the thrill of finally seeing justice served. All of it felt heavy now, a mixture of triumph and sorrow, pride and regret. I realized that survival is more than just enduring betrayal. It is also about understanding yourself, about knowing what you are capable of, and about confronting the truths that lie within. I had confronted mine. I had acted, taken control, and reclaimed my life from the hands of those who tried to destroy it. But I had also learned a valuable lesson. Revenge can satisfy in the short term, but it never heals the deeper wounds. It does not undo the hurt. It does not erase the betrayal. It only changes the balance of power, leaving both parties marked forever. And so, I chose to move forward with caution, carrying both the scars and the strength. I rebuilt slowly, piece by piece, learning to trust myself again. I surrounded myself with people who valued honesty and loyalty, who reminded me that not everyone is capable of betrayal. Some days were still hard. The memories of Daniel and Claire, the betrayal, and the calculated revenge would surface unexpectedly. But I learned to breathe through it, to let it pass without allowing it to control me. In the end, I understood that revenge was never truly about them. It was about reclaiming me, my dignity, my strength, my voice. And while it left scars, it also left me with clarity. I was no longer the person they had tried to manipulate, deceive, and hurt. I was stronger, wiser, and more aware of my own power. And that, ultimately, was the real victory. If this story moved you, take a moment to reflect on the emotions and lessons it carries. Betrayal, revenge, and trust are complex, and sometimes we all face situations that test our limits. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever experienced a betrayal that changed you? If you found the story compelling, consider liking the video to support more emotional storytime content. And for those who want to follow these journeys of raw, real-life experiences, subscribing is the best way to stay updated.